If you would go on mute when you come in, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Hey, everybody. We're so happy to have you join us. Super exciting stuff.
Can you guys see my tiger okay?
Yes, you're even good at pretending. I like
yes, and I'll reach over here once in a while and maybe say hi to.
Oh yeah, what's that guy's name?
Joe.
Okay.
Joe Exotic.
Joe Exotic.
Yep.
I love it.
Boy, whoever did that documentary, they couldn't have had better timing on this guy. He makes all of our lives feel so much better.
No kidding.
The decisions we make.
Right. Yes.
Because
the
it makes
decisions we make. That's right.
Feel so much better. So.
Oh my gosh. So Jared, I was thinking, do you want to real quick show people how to use like the Zoom features? I know you're in Zoom all the time, and there are some like chat features and raise your hand and thumbs up. Do you mind just doing like 30 seconds to show us how to leverage the technology a little bit?
Sure. So let me there's a couple other folks in the waiting room here. I'll bring those folks in.
Awesome.
Can you all see the Zoom screen that I have here? Or are you only seeing the slides?
I'm only seeing the slides.
You're only seeing the slides, so you're not seeing the Zoom interface. So there is a participants button on your Zoom screen that will bring up all of your participants and show you who all is in the session. But then down at the bottom of that participants window are other options like yes, no, slower, faster, mute, unmute, thumbs up, thumbs down, things like that. Are you all seeing those various options in the Zoom screen? Not seeing them, Kim?
I see them, yes.
Okay, so some of you may be on your phones. I'm on a Mac, so the interface might be looking a little bit different. Let me put this browser into full screen mode here so we can get full screen action happening. Hopefully that'll be a little bit bigger, a little bit easier to view. I'm going to make sure that our participants are coming in, if we've got anybody in the waiting rooms. So play around with the Zoom interface a little bit to pull up those options for participants, and the yes, no buttons are kind of nice. Shauna's got a check next to hers, so that's great. She's figured out her yes button. If you have figured out the yes, no, put your yes up for me. Hit the green check. I'm seeing a lot of green checks come up, and that's great because you don't have to go off mute to let me know that you heard a question or the answer to a question. We're going to be interacting today like just a normal session here, so don't hesitate to go off mute when we have the opportunity to do that. And so at this point, I'll hand it over to Jelana, who can start our introductions, give us an idea what the plan is for today.
All right. Well, thank you, Jared. We appreciate you as our tech guru and tiger tamer over there.
Yes.
Love that.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sure that we'll see all sorts of fun coming from your side.
You'll see an assortment.
you play the coolness factor well.
Yeah.
I love it. But thanks everybody for joining. I know that we decided to fearlessly kick this one off with some short notice, and Shauna and Jared graciously agreed to just be present and real and straight up with us today. We absolutely want to make this feel like we're all hanging out in a rec room, a coffee shop, just a comfortable space together. And this is going to be one of a series of conversations that we're going to do on Fridays. We're gonna flex the time a little bit to see if we can get kind of a sweet spot, but for the sake of just leading with fearlessness, here we go. Shauna and Jared are both excited. We had a conversation this morning to kind of set the stage for how we would do this today. I know Shauna shared some very real information about where her life is right now. So Shauna, would you mind just kind of kicking us off with where things are for you, how things stand, and more importantly, what do you see as a former athlete, as a major game player in your space? What do you see as the vision for these young minds and professionals that we have on this call today? How can we do what we can do together better facing what we see in our society with COVID-19?
Yeah.
Big question, but love your insights.
Yeah, let me figure out where to start first, which is probably hello to all of you anybody who was not on the call last week. Thank you so much for making the time. I think the space in your life for this, as well as the time in your day. This really is intention forward conversation where we're looking to be helpful to people through this time. I don't think anybody really has answers to what's going on. We're all trying to figure it out together. And I think that as Jelana just said, I was a two-sport Division I athlete, and I think that the athlete, the fighter in me, the person that wants to work with others to succeed, to prevail, I really call on that during this time. And not only this time in what we're facing with COVID and what we're seeing with, the economy and, what's doing to the world, but also, as Jelana said, I shared last week that I had been laid off. I think it was on Friday or I'm not sure which day it was, but it was one of my last days of employment after 9.5 years at a place. So it was a bit of a raw moment for me. I'm on my 5th day in, and, like I said, this is where I really do call on that part of myself, that athlete instinct of prevailing, finding a way to win. And I'm sure all of you on this call can appreciate that and identify with it to some respect. There is no quitting. It's like you have to dig as deep as you possibly can and pull on the people around you to support you and find a way to win. So I think that that's really an overarching mindset that I encourage people to have. And then, like I said, none of us really know the next stage, where the world is going. None of us know exactly what is next. And so something, again, I think as athletes you can all relate to is this saying that I've held close to me is, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And that's a lot of what we're doing here is how can we help to work together to provide upskilling, coaching, the things that you guys are used to on the field of play, but this is a different field that you're coming into, which is the field of working. And so we're all about how do we help you to upskill, coach you to be able to be successful off the field of play. So, Jelana, is that what you're looking for?
Oh yeah,
That's
absolutely.
my rap game.
I love it. You've nailed it. You've nailed it. I'd love to get a sense from the audience of what, and maybe we can use some kind of a voting button or a yes button for how many of you here are in a situation where you're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen before you're able to make your next professional move. So you're kind of in you feel very similar to Shauna in that things are not perfect, they're not stable, they're not comfortable. It's a very wild, uncomfortable sensation that we wake up and open our eyes to every morning, and we're just not certain. Can we do a little vote and just see, what percentage of us here on the call are kind of feeling that uncomfortable vibe that she was describing?
Yeah,
and Jared,
are you? Yes, sir. I'm seeing some no's. I'm seeing just a few no's, as in, I think they have a plan. I'm seeing a lot of green checks, and that makes sense. I share that sentiment myself.
Yeah, for sure. So Jared, just to toss that right at you, you kind of gave me a softball there. I'm going to swing at this one. Give us your reaction to Shauna's, game plan. I love where her head is, and I'd love to hear your thoughts from your seat and how you're processing this reality.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to get hired on at Salesforce. It's a dream job for me. I had about 6 months to ramp up, and then another 2 months to be live as an SE before this started to really hit. And when this started to hit, I tell you, everyone at Salesforce has that mentality. You are always ready so that you don't have to get ready. I'm being immediately told to figure out ways to engage with our customers, and our customers are, in my role, my customers are EDU customers, very similar to the situation that you all are in right now, where you are essentially the customer for a college. They are my customer, and I'm doing everything in my power to facilitate a way to make their jobs easier, to use Salesforce to track various initiatives, whatever it takes. I'm doing it every day with my customers. And it's really kind of one of those crazy modalities that, as an employee in a fast-moving organization, if it's small or medium-sized or enterprise level, that's the expectation at this point. People are being pushed into their homes. They have to work from home. They have to pivot quickly, and that's kind of the expectation. You know this in the athletics world because you just never know what's going to be thrown at you in a game. You try to prep for all of it. This is the first time we've ever seen anything like this at an organizational level, ever. And so there's no playbook. That's the only way to say it. There's no playbook to respond. The playbook is that what you had before is essentially thrown out, and you do your best to adjust and find a way to persevere, find a way to get through, find a way to adjust the way you do the normal in and out of your job, or in your case, adjust to what is new for you in getting into the job market. So if you would here, Sean, I'll show you one of the stats that we looked at last week. This stat is shocking, and it gives you an idea of where we were back in '08 and where we were as of March 21st, right? Well, this is the new stat that I pulled the other day. And you can see that as of the 21st of March, this is where we were. And now those jobless claims are more in the 16 million range. So it's not something to fool around with. I'm sure, have any of you all had friends that have been laid off at this point? Click your yes button or your no button if you've, so I kind of get an idea of where everybody is with that. Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing. A lot of layoffs, and we all hope that we can get all this back on track at some point, right? And this really is the key here. How do we get this all back on track? How do we find a way to get through these challenges that we're all seeing? International students are being told to go home, that there's no money essentially because their economy slowed down. Students here in the United States are being told some very similar things. Come home. Graduate assistantships are being pulled. So this is one of those times where we will all look back on this and see that this was the day that the playbook got rewritten. And so the retraining piece of this is critical. And I've prepared just a few little pieces today to touch on in terms of how we retrain ourselves, because it really is so critical to understand how we do that. And as I transition to that slide, I'm going to go ahead and change my background to something a little more, let's see here, what is this one? There we go. I'm in a coffee house now. So I'll transition and kind of give you an idea here of where we look at ourselves and how we manage the way change happens. I love this Gartner infographic because it talks about how we engage when new things hit our life, right? So this infographic talks about how we adjust to these changes, how we see them, the things that are good, the things that are bad. And this is specifically about technology, but I believe it applies in a lot of different ways here. There's always something that triggers the change. So in the Gartner, what this is referred to as the hype cycle, there's a tech trigger, and that could be an iPhone, that could be artificial intelligence, that could be cryptocurrency, that could be any of these technologies. And Jelana and I talked about this earlier in the week, because this is really one of these pieces where we're looking at an innovation trigger right now, but it's a negative one, right? It's not one of those positive ones that we look at and go, this is going to be amazing. This is one of these negative innovation triggers where we now have to manage the expectations that go with it. We're all going to be stuck inside for a year, you know. This is that peak of inflated expectations. If it's an iPhone, we believe it's going to save the world. It's going to have all these amazing features. The first version of the iPhone didn't. Eventually, it dropped down into what we refer to here as the trough of disillusionment, right? This is where we look at the product or the scenario or the change, and we say, you know what? It doesn't meet these expectations that we had. Slowly, that technology changes. It moves into what we refer to here as the slope of enlightenment, right? You can memorize these all of these terms and talk to your friends later tonight about how eventually we will reach the slope of enlightenment. It's a fantastic slope to be on. And then finally, we get to this plateau of productivity, and that's essentially where that product is now, or that change is now adjusted. We've made the changes we need, and we understand it, right? So if this is good or this is bad, our X and our Y axes here are what our expectations are. And then finally here on the horizontal axis, we're talking about time. It takes time for us to make these adjustments to our new normal. If it's a technology, if it's a change, whatever it is, we have to make adjustments to it. So I'll drop some technologies in here and show you where they are on the hype cycle. So you'll kind of get an idea of how these changes affect us, right? There, way back here are the technologies, and these may be hard to read, but that are just starting out, right? 3D bioprinting, effective computing, affective computing, prescriptive analytics, data sciences, smart advisors, Internet of Things, right? It's at the top of our peak. And then down here in the valley, we're talking about things that we thought were going to be awesome, but maybe they're not as awesome. You know, mobile health monitoring, cloud computing, virtual reality. And then slowly we start to move up to the plateau of productivity here. And that is essentially those items that are further up the list. Well, the changes we go through in life, they have some very similar stages here, right? COVID, how it's affected us, how it's affected your, you know, even your involvement in your life with your parents, your friends, your school, your athletics. We're all going through these changes. And if you notice, this hype cycle also represents what it looks like when something big is dropped on us, right? Like if we're talking about the ocean, right? A very flat ocean, someone throws a giant rock into it. That first wave is giant, right? And eventually it tapers off and it becomes calmer as the waves adapt, as the water adapts and adjusts to that move. So that's the piece that I want you to internalize, is that first big hit is massive, right? It can often take us out, but as we move through these changes and these different hypes, we adapt, we understand, we all want to get past these things. So we understand that first wave is the biggest, the subsequent waves are smaller. And it also applies to our emotions, right? I know that I go through these same cycles where that first big hit is really hard to process. It spikes a lot of emotional reaction in me. And eventually those fade off and they become less and less. And so be aware of your emotions as you go through these. As we're quarantined, those emotions start to rise. We have to acknowledge those. We have to learn to control those. We have to channel those into some sort of energy. That wave eventually overcomes us. We let it wash over us, and then that next wave isn't as bad, and then the next wave isn't as bad. So I want to make sure that you understand how these different changes in our lives affect us. And then the piece of this that we have to really understand here is how we learn from these things. There are no hacks in the way we learn. We have to go through these phases, right? This is a famous learning model called Bloom's taxonomy. I love this because it really helps us better understand everything that we are learning and reskilling for right now. We start by remembering these facts, basic facts. We define them, we duplicate them, we make lists of them, we memorize them. Secondly, we try to understand them. We try to classify or translate. These are words that we use to kind of understand, to really move us through the taxonomy of where we are learning, where we are in our learning. We apply these concepts, right? We're going to implement, solve, demonstrate, interpret, operate. These are verbs that essentially describe what we're doing after we've learned these things. We analyze these pieces, we draw connections, we organize, we relate them to other things. This is that piece where we're starting to climb up higher. And I love the triangle because it also represents the amount of effort that is going into the process. It takes so much effort to memorize. It takes a little less effort to understand. It takes a little less time and energy to apply. And as we go up to this top level here where we evaluate, we judge, we select, and then create, that's that final level of taking everything we've learned. There is no growth hack, right? There is no fast lane. You guys know this as athletes. You don't get to start unless you've put in the time to learn all of these other pieces to get to that top where you can be that creative individual. The Steph Currys of the world, I'm a basketball fan, the Michael Jordans of the world, they went through all of these phases before they ever got to the point where they were creating as industry or as sports experts. So that's the trick. We have to go through these phases quickly when we hit change. And so I challenge you to try to memorize these phases so that you understand where you are in the learning process. And that learning process essentially includes these pieces. So when we talk about the Salesforce involvement, everyone at Salesforce is going through these essential skill components every day. Knowledge, right? That's our understanding, that's our foundation. The ability to have competence in levels, the ability to train those to someone, right? You don't know something until you train it to someone else. The experience of having good and bad various life experiences, those abilities that come with all that experience, the growth that comes with that layered on top of all the other growth. And then finally, in this corner here that I like to add, that ability to have your connections. When we connect through the sessions that we're going through right now, we're actually taking all of these pieces and grouping them together and adding value to them as a team. So don't hesitate to share this stuff out as we go through this process, because it's so important to understand how all of this ties together. And I'll pause there because I really wanted to get that lesson out today so that you understand just how critical it is to begin this reskilling process and connect it with how we understand our ability to learn these new things.
Thank you, Jared. I appreciate you putting that together. The thoughts of how we weave technology, innovation, and transformation into personal innovation and transformation are clear. I'd love for those of you on the call to let us know either by the chat bot or the chat box or by a green button whether that's resonating. If there's a question you have, you can shoot it over. Jared will see those. Oh, he's got an audience Q&A, of course.
Yeah, we got that also.
Of
We can
course.
certainly drop those in there.
I love that.
But you can also go off mute and just ask or make comments, right? This is a chat. So go ahead and unmute one at a time if you have comments or if you got questions or whatever. Break them out.
For sure.
Hello, Jared. How are you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Jacob. How are
doing,
you? Hey.
I'm fucking off my iPad. My computer was kind of bugging out this morning. But I just wanted to say that was really informative, I think, especially for me who's like transitioning, everybody's just like, oh, like, you're done playing. You got to just pick up something new and start. But explaining Bloom's taxonomy, it just kind of made me realize that, you know, even though it's something as simple as learning something new, it's still a process. And you kind of have to respect it, and it takes time to move through it.
Yeah,
It does.
that's absolutely right. The process, if you've been taught how to do something, you often aren't aware of the steps it takes to train yourself to do something new. And that can be overwhelming. That can be exhausting. You know, I love screen cap this thing, take a photo of it, whatever. I love understanding this because it gives you a step. All right, my first step is I need to start memorizing some elements. You know, if you want to hop into the IT world, that's where the jobs are going to be. When this market fires up again, and it will, there is still a massive need for IT workers in the United States. Critical infrastructure workers, critical IT, whatever. If that's not your passion, don't worry about it. But that's where the jobs are going to be. Jelana told me something years ago that you know, really kind of shocked me. She went in and talked to a career advisor and said, "Hey, what's the industry I need to get into to know that I'm going to have job security and know that I'm going to have an impact?" And it was IT, right? And so that's still the answer. We don't have enough IT workers, period. And getting into the Salesforce side of things is great if you have a passion for organizing, understanding how the Salesforce tools work, but it's not the only option. So, you know, I'm glad to say that, you know, it's hard to start something new, but go after a passion, right? Go after something that you know is going to land you a job somewhere too, when all this settles down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll just jump in there. I think that I know that in the very beginning, Jared had asked if people feel like affected or they feel that they could, if what I was saying was resonating. And so I think, and some people were like, no, they don't really feel either impacted or that their course was going to change or they had a plan. So the one thing I would say I would encourage is, like, even if you already knew like what course you wanted to be on, give yourself an opportunity to pause and look at it and like evaluate, analyze, you know, is that, you know, does COVID impact that decision? Does COVID impact that? So, you know, is it, because yes, IT for sure. There's also, you know, like renewable energy. Is that a place where there's a lot of, you know, a more future looking thing? So I will also expose, you know, I had been a part of for the last 9.5 years, a sports entertainment agency. And I spent my entire career in sports entertainment. And so that space has been incredibly impacted. And so, you know, I am in a position where I'm needing to look at, okay, what makes most sense for me? Do I need to switch? Do I need to look at that space and bring innovation and new thinking to it? Or do I need to look in a new space? So again, I think that's just a little bit from me on the opportunity to, you know, evaluate, analyze what path you're going in.
Yep.
Yeah, so if nobody minds, I'd like to jump in here. Hello, everybody.
Sure.
Hey, Damarian, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Damarian
honestly,
is our Amazon guy. So
cool.
I'm excited to hear what he has to say. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'll be with AWS Sales this summer. And so I really enjoyed this presentation because right now what I'm kind of gauging from it is that you kind of have to be uncomfortable or comfortable with being uncomfortable in a sense, and knowing how to take what you've already learned, what you've already kind of seen and adapted to, and knowing how to mesh that so then you can further synthesize what you're trying to do later on. So I really enjoyed this presentation on like the overall outlook on how to just really be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because these are really perilous times for everybody right now. I know I'm really upset. My internship moved to virtual, so now I won't be in Seattle this summer, but I'm still grateful for the opportunity for the internship. But yeah, so just being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then also I did want to see if the slides would be available after the conclusion of the presentation as well.
Yeah, I can share them out. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Shauna.
Oh.
Or maybe that was something else.
Yeah,
That was
go
Kim.
ahead. Kim. Yeah.
Jared, do you mind going back to the slide with the like chart, the like
Sure.
squiggle?
Sure.
Yeah, so I first had heard about that. Do you mind going to the one that was before it, I think?
Oh, the one right before this one here, the slope.
Yeah.
There we go. The
Yeah,
swoop.
hype
so-
cycle.
The swoop
Yes.
slide.
So someone, a friend had mentioned this to me. I didn't realize it was in the context of technology and the world, but a friend had mentioned this to me when I was talking to her about switching over and giving sales a try. And she had talked about how this kind of applies to when people, switch career paths or are trying to learn a new skill. And I thought this really resonated with me because, in the beginning, you're like, you have all these, hopes and, high expectations.
Yeah, expectations, right?
Fulfill. And then when you get into it, at least for me in sales, you get that daily rejection. And then you're in that trough of disillusionment. And then slowly, but slowly you eventually learn these skills to just be more efficient in working and finding the right decision, finding the right, email formats, simple as that, calling at the right time, stuff like that. And then you eventually become more productive. But before, you hit that stage of being really efficient and effective, like it's true that you do kind of hit a high and then hit a low point for before hitting that objective.
I've heard that in the sales world referenced as a lot of motion and not much progress. You're just moving and thinking that you're accomplishing things, and then you just realize, dang it, I'm not really doing that. What I'm really doing is learning what doesn't work, and then learning what works. And I love this slope because I love this concept because it gives you a theoretical framework to apply to anything new, anything that you're going to have expectations. Well, should you manage those? Should you not have them? Because they're going to be overinflated ultimately. What's the trough of disillusionment look like? Is it a point at which you just stop and give up? Probably not. What's that slope of enlightenment, that learning curve, and then finally that plateau? This applies to so many things. So, internalize it, really, really research it, because it applies to marketing, it applies to products, it applies to technology, it applies to jobs. It's a theoretical concept that you can apply to anything, so that when you go into it, after you've had experience, you realize, okay, I need to manage my expectations here. That's exactly what that means. And that's a great point, Kim.
Hey, Jared, one quick question about another one of your slides, as long as we're talking about the deck that you prepared for today.
Sure.
The one that showed the lifeline of technology. There you go.
Yeah.
That's incredibly interesting. I love it. I did take a screenshot of that. I don't see a legend, so I was wondering what the different shapes meant that were assigned to some of the technologies.
Yeah, I'm wondering here. The legend is at the bottom. It may be getting cut off. Let me see if I can take us out of full screen mode and if it'll show the legend. All right, are you seeing?
Oh, there you go. Now
there we go. All right. Yeah, so he's absolutely right. So the triangle here is more than 10 years. The dark blue is 5 to 10 years. And these are the time frames, right? Obsolete before the plateau. I don't see that. I don't see anything that fits that description. Less than 2 years. So let's take a look at some things that are less than 2 years. What it would be less than 2 years. In-memory analytics. What's this one out here a little further on the scale? Oh, speech recognition, right? Man, this stuff, how many of you guys have an Alexa or a Google Home or Siri, right? That stuff rocketed up to that high expectation. It hit the trough very quickly about a year ago, and now it is in your house. You're running your lights with it. You're starting your car with it. You're checking on your baby with it on your TV, right? It ramped really fast. Now, the thing that I like to look at in these overall views of where things are is that these are the types of jobs that you can be looking at in the future. Oftentimes, these areas that are on the roller coaster, right, and they're on their way up the roller coaster, smart robots, right? So eventually, we're all going to have some sort of smart robot roaming around our house, cleaning up our stuff. I personally want one. I have a Roomba, and it can only vacuum things. I wish it could do more, you know, put my trash out on Sunday night. So that's the kind of thing that we will see hit the hype and then drop into the trough and then eventually pull up on the plateau there. So these are the types of jobs that are coming down the pipeline.
That's awesome. I appreciate you explaining that and showing.
Sure,
or
sure. Yeah,
increasing
this is I tell you, when I saw this concept in some of the training that I'd done a few years back, man, it registered with me in like a emotional way, because it explains so much of why these things were so important. I mean, think of cryptocurrencies, right? I mean, we can all understand the cryptocurrency rise. Like, you can even chart the rise based on the price. This was about, right up here was about the $20,000 price of Bitcoin, right? And then it hit that trough, and now it's hovering in the 3,000 range or 2,000 range. I haven't checked it in a while, right? Any other comments
cool.
or anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, so this is Chase here. Hello, everybody.
Hey, Chase.
I also wanted to just kind of thank you, Jared, for throwing this this kind of slope line graph on here. It's helped me out a lot. Just kind of taking a step back and having some perspective as far as like such an unprecedented situation that we're all dealing with here.
Yeah.
I started a sales position, like a training position, back in October, and then made a move to another training position or another sales position in like February. Mm-hmm. And so I was kind of, you know, I was in that peak of, you know, I had those expectations set for myself.
Sure.
And then, you know, I fell into the trough of disillusionment a little bit, and then I was starting to feel myself kind of come up on the slope of enlightenment, and then all this kind of happened, and I kind of felt like it set me way back, and now I'm back at the innovation trigger again.
Sure.
So it was really overwhelming, but just kind of seeing it now, seeing it laid out, having some perspective, it helps make it a lot less overwhelming, and you know, hopefully this will just make it that much better, make me that much better of a salesman come, you know, whenever this is over, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And you know, I went through this same cycle with Salesforce. I was lucky enough to get on. I'd thrown my resume over the wall, as they say. You know, they get $2 million. They get 2 million applicants a year, right? Which is insane. You know, Google gets, I think, 15 million to 20 million a year. But anyway, I got lucky enough to get on, and man, my expectations were high. Like, this company's amazing. And the more, as they say, I saw the sausage being made, the more I realized, man, there's just behind the scenes of this. A lot of times there's duct tape and wiring and stuff holding it all together. And on the front end, it looks amazing.
Exactly.
But on the back end, you start to realize, gosh, is this really how this works? I thought it worked better than that. So, you know, there's a lot. You're going to go through this in anything you experience, and so the more you embrace it and understand that this will be the flow, then you'll not ride like the wave shows the highs and the lows, right? You'll stay right in the middle of that wave. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's so much calmer in the middle of the wave than on the roller coaster.
Cool. Yeah,
absolutely.
Gonna ride the waves. Jared, can you give us a sense of, I know you did the lion's share of the development for the Salesforce upskilling programming. I know we've talked about a few things, and then I want to have you take a minute to just kind of throw that out there again so we understand exactly what they can expect when they're in the program.
Yep.
I'd love, Shauna, for you to give some feedback on how you see that value proposition playing out personally for each one of us as we own that opportunity. I know that there are like a baseline of about 60 hours worth of what we'd call corporate boot camp, and then there's specialty work that each of us can own and go into more specific tracks of exploration. But yeah, if you could do this for us, I think that will give us an incredible sense of baselining. And then how do we move the needle? Because this is our opportunity to get above all of this and own our intention. I love that.
Yes. Yeah. So the Trailhead platform, the training platform, has so many great classes in it. What I've done is I've taken some of my favorites and some of the ones that I believe you all could benefit from greatly, not only at other organizations, but also within Salesforce. They still have a goal to go from 45,000 employees to close to 100,000 employees in the next 3 years. So they're not fooling around. I don't know how COVID will affect that. It'll probably delay it a little bit, but who knows? So what I've done is I've put together a trail that really highlights these important pieces to understand the Salesforce technology, the Salesforce ethos, the company values, and these pieces will apply and will benefit you anywhere you go. Okay, so that's what I've done with that Trailhead. I want you to hop in there and start taking those courses. They're short, they're simple. You can hop through one in 10 minutes. Others related to the Salesforce product itself are more in the hour range. But having those skills, you can put on your resume, immediately pushes you to the front of the line when they start looking at job applicants after this COVID scenario. And I'll pause there and hand it to Shauna and get her input on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole process here, like, Jared is saying, is to use this opportunity to, again, like, find these skills, upskill yourself, make yourself as valuable of a candidate as possible. And I think, now is the time, really, we everybody's been through the traditional schooling, and I think it's like, this is where you can add additional skills. I think there's, on this call, a couple of people have been talking about being in sales roles, and I think, some of these tools, this technology, are things that, when you're able to show that you know how to do these type of things, then it helps you so much to hit the ground running when you are, when you get hired, when you're in conversation, you're interviewing. A lot of times when I'm coaching people, I talk about, my goal is to try to help people put as many tools in their toolbox, their individual toolbox, as possible. And I think that's really what we're talking about here.
Yep, absolutely. And then, so our goal is to be able at some point to connect those of you with some folks at Salesforce to have some mentoring. And that will hopefully be in an area that you're interested in. We're gonna do our best to connect you with people who are in marketing and sales, in solution engineering, in whatever area you're interested in, if you are interested in that. So that's kind of the long-term plan once you've gotten through the training, and we'll talk more about that. I do have the ability to connect folks with mentors, so that's our goal. That's our goal.
Hey, Jared, thank you, and really thank you for the partnership and offering this to the folks that are becoming members of our Team athLEDA. I'm going to send out a quick chat to everyone. It's just a link to our membership page where you can sign up for this program. It's really easy. I think it's a couple of clicks, and you'll get the link and whatnot from Jared's team to be able to begin going through this training. It's very easy.
Yeah, and the signups help us be able to offer more of the training, especially now. We're putting together the training that we know is important in this 3.0. It's like workforce 3.0. Not 2.0. We're done with that. This is the new one. So so we're on the cusp of that. We are on the top of that wave, and it's tall and scary. So we're all going to ride it together. But
That's right.
We're going to take our past experience, and we're going to build and manage those expectations and put together content and training that will really help you guys be ahead of the curve when you come out on the other side of this wave.
Appreciate it. If somebody didn't get that chat that I sent out, reach out to Jelana or myself afterwards, and we can hook you up with that link to our page. It's on our page if you go to it. It's not.
One of my favorite parts about, to add to what Blair's saying, and again, Jared, thank you for pulling all of these pieces of knowledge in the trails together for us. I was able to download the app, the Salesforce Trailhead app, to my phone. And so now when I'm doing something that is a bit more my downtime, or I can set aside, I've got a timer on my phone where I'll just go in for 20 minutes and do my upskilling and then move on to something else. That has been for me a very easy and flexible way for me to get my training moving, and it's a bit fun. I mean, it's got a bit of a cartoon feel. I think they've done a nice job of kind of gamifying some of the trails.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's not like dry, boring, old school grad school type stuff. It definitely has a fun vibe to it. Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to add as far as the user experience, for sure.
Yeah, it really is fun. So I zoomed through them. I will tell you that organizations out there will hire people if they have Trailhead Ranger status. They'll hire you just for having that status, because they know that you're going to be able to help them manage a Salesforce instance and optimize it in some way. So just be aware that those jobs are valuable. And I know for a fact that many of the folks that work and put together this resume of Salesforce skills, they ultimately land at Salesforce, right? So, and that essentially means six-figure jobs, jobs that would take years and years to get to otherwise. You can jump that line and you can build skills that make you so valuable to this new economy as quickly as possible. It doesn't have to be at Salesforce. It can be anywhere else. But that's just kind of the goal for us, is to quickly skill up with those new options, that new knowledge base that you're putting together, and ride that wave through here and be prepared for it as you land on the other side of it.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I was just saying earlier this morning on a call, this is Shauna, I was going to say earlier on a call today. I was really talking about how I believe and I'm seeing that brands and individuals are going to be measured on how they operated throughout this time. So I think I said that in a positive way, because when people start telling the stories of, well, what did you do during COVID? And to be able to say, gosh, I was a part of this and I use this as a time to like upskill and to, connect with a mentor and to develop, and, as opposed to someone who's like, well, I sat there and played my video games, or, and you're seeing, I'm not sure how much people on this call are really paying attention to what brands are doing, but you're seeing brands, come out with all sorts of positive reactions to it. So again, just think about that. Or again, I go back to hearing some of the people on this call talk about sales. And on one hand, people could think that if you're in a sales role, you can't do any outreach at all. You certainly can't be selling anything to anybody because nobody wants to buy. So there's nothing you can do. And I think I would challenge people in that, think about how you can provide value. How can you reach out to people in meaningful and relevant ways right now? Yeah. Again, it might not be, it's not selling them anything, but it's connecting, it's building your network, it's establishing relationships. So right. I really think that there's, through this, what we're putting forth here is the opportunity to kind of figure out, well, how do you operate during this time in a way that's going to help make everybody stronger?
Yeah.
It shows maturity. If you show up with this list of accomplishments that you went through over this 2-month, 3-month time frame versus the person who gamed their brains out, it just shows maturity. So
yeah, I agree.
Great opportunity.
One thing I'll add that was kind of a fun case in point. So this is our first of many virtual coffee talks, and we're going to have some industry experts. We've got some folks from medical device, solar, wind, alternative energy, mobile technology. Two of the main players, we've got a couple of folks on the call right now that I'm thinking about that have shared with me that Salesforce is the backbone of their organization's sales team, and it took them almost 6 months. So they are experienced hires, but it took them almost 6 months to get comfortable with the tools that they used. After talking with them about what we're doing here, the reaction was, wow, if I had had a chance to jump to the front of the line and get that skilling earlier, and when I took my role, what really took me a long time to become productive was learning how to use the tools. So now I am there, but boy, what an opportunity for me to get advanced in an area where this particular set of technology is so integrated into Fortune 100 companies. We see it as the backbone of over 80% of the firms out there running a sales team. That is definitely its sweet spot, its white space in the value chain for the organizations that we see and serve. So I just wanted to put that out there. And if any of you are interested in talking with those athletes, send me a note, shoot me a note, and I will introduce that conversation to you. I just want to make sure that I give you that insight, and you can hear firsthand from the folks that are looking at how they would have approached things differently had they had the opportunity. So just wanted to throw that out there. I also wanted to see, I think Camille and a few others have put into our chat bot some of the other topics that you guys might want to hear as we kind of round out this session. Let's make sure that you give us a sense of what are the topics. I mentioned a few just now: medical device, medical diagnostics, just medical technology, I think, is a piece we could definitely pull through. One of my favorite former bosses is in like the medical diagnostics space, and he's hilarious and a great speaker. So he's already raised his hand to bring some sessions to us. Shauna's got some incredible folks in her network. Jared as well, entrepreneurs, game changers. That's why we brought them on. That's why Shauna's a part. That's why Jared's here. But we want to hear from you. We can only make this as good as we know it's adding value to your lives. So any last thoughts, comments from our crew, my affectionate term for everyone who came into this call today, and last words from Shauna or Jared?
Nope. I'm trying to share these slides out. They may be locked into our org, so we'll try to get them to you in some other way.
Okay.
Yeah, my only last words are a bit of echoing what Jelana just said, is that, you know, when we're building this as we, you know, we already had a foundation that we're building as we go, and your input, this is truly to help make, you know, everybody on this call is, you know, help them be their best. So, you know, when we ask for input, what do you think, that kind of thing, you know, that's the reason why. And so just, you know, just know that. So we invite people to provide, you know, questions, insight, that kind of thing. And I believe we will have, as a part of the athLEDA Foundation, we will have, you know, a survey going out again, to be able to build this truly to help people on this call and in the group.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks everybody for taking your time out today. It's you're investing in yourselves. This is what distinguishes you guys from the kids sitting on the couch gaming all day long. It's really important. So go after it and find your passion and really start skilling according to what you want to do. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Appreciate your feedback, comments, questions, insights, all of it. It's welcome. Thank you for your time on a Friday. I know that's a gift. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody. Connect with me on LinkedIn too, okay? So I can hear from you if you got other questions.
For sure.
Everyone.
Thanks all. Happy Friday.